My purpose was, well, it was to inform and entertain.
Inform and entertain. Would you like to?
Oh, all right. No questions first. Any questions?
Yeah. We'll do it afterwards.
Oh,
we'll do it afterwards.
Well, the questions.
Yeah. So, can we have a vote to see whether you were
informed
by Brian's speech?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Brian, overwhelmingly.
Questions. Any big questions?
I was there I used to fly into Khartoum in the late 70s, so I knew the place was a SHIT hole in the first place. And because I used to fly over Juba and so forth, and there was always fighting going on, even back in the 70s, let alone 2007. It's the whole country is completely tribal.
Yeah.
And everyone hates each other.
Yeah.
Literally.
They do. There was a classic example of a truck driver who came from the Guinea part, driving through Rumbek. Stupid kid on a motorbike straight in front of him, killed him. He was hiding in the truck, inside, and eventually the police turned up and said, "Oh yes, right, he's obviously run away," and sort of moved everyone off, go look for him, and they took him into the police station. Later on that day, there were armed gangs attacking the police station, and the police were having to defend themselves because they wanted this kid. They were going to kill him. They're not going to kill the driver. They wanted to kill him because eye for an eye. And the UN, of course, are useless. That's the worst thing about that place was the useless peacekeepers. They really should not have been there because they didn't do anything. They didn't protect civilians, which is what they're supposed to do. And I shall not go into a rant because that's another thing. Hate for the UN. Any more questions?
Brian, who's paying for the radio station?
Oh, the radio stations were paid for by the US aid. The American government, like our DFID, they funded a lot of projects all around the world, mostly to do with information. Radio stations were very important because they provided you with health, agricultural, general programming on how to live in these situations. Mosquito nets. Now, most people know about a mosquito net, but they provided a lot of free mosquito nets that were insecticide treated, which meant when the mosquitoes landed on the net, they died, instead of landing and then flying off somewhere else. So, yeah, that was, the radios are very good. It was in their own language as well, not in English.
Did you get all 3 radio stations up and running?
We did. The 4th we couldn't, because the people, it was on a disputed area. It was in an area which the Sudanese didn't like us coming into. And every time we tried anything, they just sent troops down. And the saddest thing I saw in Kurmuk were a group of probably 20 of the men, young lads, training, carrying wooden guns, training to become soldiers. They didn't have any weapons. They all got wiped out in Kurmuk. Sudan just walked in and killed everybody.
Surely nothing's happened much since Gordon of Khartoum.
Well, the only thing Gordon did was he brought English in so we could all understand each other. But that doesn't help because they all kill each other. They have, it's wonderful when you think about it, they have rustling, where the tribes go out and rustle cows off somebody else because cows are their main currency. Then they'd have kidnapping gangs who go out and capture women and children and bring them back as slaves. And then the other lot would say, oh, well, that's our turn now, so they go down and take them back, or get some new ones if they want new ones. That's a crazy place. Any more?
I have a question, so I didn't quite understand. So, what were you building? Were you building an infrastructure as a building of a radio, or were you just purely trying to build something that can transmit?
Yeah, we built radio stations with 30-metre towers with antennas on the top, which would transmit about 50 miles, and all of the equipment to produce the programs in the studio is all built to do the job.
So you built a studio also?
Yeah, studio. Had to build a studio. And we use computers mostly to run the stations with CD players and stuff like that. But we trained the people, the locals, how to make the programs and stuff. So it was good. Same thing that I did in Liberia. We did 26 in Liberia. In Sudan, we really couldn't do more than 4. It was just too dangerous. I mean, they were just, the Sudanese was, during this period when it was supposed to be safe, they were going in and bombing the disputed areas. And it got so bad that when you were up in the Nuba Mountains, the goats and the children knew when an Antonov was coming. They could hear it coming, and we couldn't, and then head straight to the caves, because when an Antonov came, you knew they were going to start bombing. And so these animals knew, these goats knew that there was an Antonov flying towards them. So it's very sad.
How long were you there for?
Yeah, and that was enough.
Okay, just one question. In the current dispute, I mean, there's so much talk about bombings and artillery fire and all the rest of it. Where's all this hardware coming from?
Oh, well, yeah, it's not a problem when you consider how much money they got from oil. The Sudanese army has a lot of equipment, and it's the other general, who was also part of the army, but he's a militia now, he looted most of what he's using from the army stores anyway. So, it's not difficult getting on the kit. And the Chinese, of course, they're buying the oil, and so they can provide weapons instead of paying cash for it. And so it's the usual thing. Whatever you've got, diamonds, gold, you can swap that any time for weapons.
And the British benefits.
Oh yes.
Start up on that, they come over here, get our benefits, and then send them through the travel agent to their country.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things going on.
Huge amounts of money leaves our country every week on that.
Any more? No. Okay, well.
So we still have